Let's start by making a list and
Okay.
checking it twice.
I love it. It sounds very Christmassy.
Welcome to the Christ Centered Stewardship podcast with your hosts, Maria Casillas and Nino. Christ Centered Stewardship is a ministry of new money habits designed to equip believers to steward everything God has given them, including their time, talent, and treasure in ways that bring Him honor, glory, and praise. You can join our growing community on Facebook and submit your questions to podcast at newmoneyhabits.com. Now, to begin today's episode, here is Maria Casillas and Nino.
Small habits create big change. Welcome to the New Money Habits podcast, where we help you build healthier habits for money and life so you can live with more peace, confidence, and purpose. Alongside me today is not only my co-host, but one of the co-founders of New Money Habits. It's Maria Casillas.
Hello.
Maria, it has been just a minute because we have been busy doing other things and we're rotating voices here on the New Money Habits podcast. So I'm so happy to have you back on and we get to jam about Christmas in July.
Awesome. I'm happy to be here.
So here it is, it's July. And what we like to do each and every year, so we sit down with our clients and sit down with our listeners and we remind them, let's start planning for Christmas in July. Why do we do that?
Well, I'd imagine because it's the halfway point and it gives us a little bit of runway rather than waking up in November, or more likely waking up. Actually, that is in November. Yeah, like on Black Friday going, oh, I probably have some people I'd like to purchase gifts for. And then only having like 3.5 weeks to make that happen. So this gives us a little bit more time to actually plan and be more intentional with our money.
And the fact that you brought up Black Friday, very important to this whole thing, because so often we wake up around Black Friday and it's like, oh, right, Christmas is right around the corner. Obviously Thanksgiving was the day before. Now we're in Christmas mindset, but it's also Black Friday and we want to take advantage of some of those deals, but we haven't done any planning. And so now the chaos ensues. And absolutely, not only is it the midway point of the year, but for a while now, it just feels like July has been enough runway. We could certainly do it earlier in the year, but July, it's summertime. Things are kind of quiet other than maybe summer break with families who have children who are out of school and that sort of thing, and maybe you're on vacation. But the other part of that runway is it's far enough away that we can minimize some of the emotional spending that happens when we get closer and closer to the date.
Well, I'd like to say that I 100% agree with that. I almost 100% agree with that. And here's why. I think that the stores are getting so early these days. I mean, literally just the other day, my daughter was asking, "Hey, Mom, what's the next holiday?" And I said, "Well, the Independence Day." We had a little discussion about that. And then she's like, "Well, what's the one after that?" And I didn't realize where she was going with this. And so I'm like, I think your sister's birthday. Well, what about after that? And I'm like, my birthday? Like we just keep going down the months. And then she's like, "Well, what after that?" I said, "Halloween, and then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas." And she goes, "Mom, I can't believe that those are so far away. And we already saw Halloween decorations in the store." And that's where her mind was going with this. And I was like, wow. I mean, she's 7, which is pretty incredible for her to be able to make that connection. But as she was saying that, I thought, you know what? I give it a month and a half and there's going to be Christmas decorations up already. And so I don't disagree with anything that you just said personally. It's just that I don't know if it's as much of a runway and being able to avoid those emotional purchases as it used to be. We almost have to
Right.
start doing Christmas in January at this point when we're all over Christmas and we're like, oh, well, now I can start planning for the next one. But yeah, I agree with everything else that you said. I just wish the stores would slow down and not try to get us so emotionally ramped up so early.
Yeah, it's almost like they know what they're doing.
You think?
Yeah. And speaking of January, the problem is we are often cleaning up the mess from Christmas, an unplanned Christmas, let's put it that way. If there was an unplanned Christmas and perhaps we turned to debt to make Christmas happen, we're spending January, maybe February, March cleaning up that mess. So doing Christmas in January is sometimes problematic because we're cleaning up from the one prior. And therefore, I want to start the conversation there, thinking about this concept of the New Age definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So let's do something different. Let's plan for Christmas 2026 in July of 2026 and give ourselves an opportunity to do things differently so that in January of 2027, we're not cleaning up from Christmas, but we can put Christmas in the rearview mirror and enjoy the season in a hopefully a new and fresh way. Not only will this help you to maybe cash flow Christmas and just change things financially, but also perhaps even change things so that you can enjoy the season for what the season is intended to be enjoyed for.
Well put.
All right. So, super practical. Let's start by making a list and checking it twice.
I love it. It sounds very Christmassy.
Doesn't it, though? So in Christmas in July, all you're doing this early is really sitting down and start with a list. And on that list, there are essentially three things. There might be more if we get into the nuance of language, but those three things would be list out the people you want to buy for, the events you want to participate in, and maybe the places you want to go or the experiences you want to have.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Sounds simple enough, yeah.
So I'm curious, Maria, who would make it on your list and who wouldn't and why? Because I think it's important that we realize that a list doesn't have to include everybody all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the second question is a lot easier if they're naughty or nice, I mean, that makes the most sense. No, of course I kid. I think one of the biggest things for us to consider when it comes to who's on the list is looking back at our traditions in the past and really understanding who do we want to be able to give and why. So, for example, we have a lot of family, and sometimes our family is able to be with us and sometimes they are not. And oftentimes we decide not to send gifts to every sibling and every cousin that lives out of town, because that would be not just expensive in terms of the gift giving, but the shipping alone would be the gift. So it's like, we don't always do that. But even outside of family, one of the examples that came immediately to mind was my husband's coworkers, for example. And so he runs a full team, and sometimes we like to, maybe if there's a small gift that we knew would be something that they would really enjoy and it's something that we can afford, or there's a meaning behind it, that we could gift the whole team. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just give a nice gift to his bosses, and just because of his relationship with them. And so kind of knowing ahead of time what we would like to do for them is something important. Now, we're talking about planning this up to 5 or 6 months ahead of time. And I mean, we never really know who he's going to be working with or for at that time. Technically, we kind of hope that he will still have the same position and that he will still be with the same team. So we can sort of preemptively plan, but we have to know that there needs to be some give and take because, life changes. So there's that. And then when it comes to our own children, I think that obviously we're going to gift them something, but I think for at least my husband and I, one of the toughest discussions is how much, at what extent, and what sorts of things and experiences do we want to give to them. And so I think that goes really well with the second two that you were talking about.
The example that I like to give clients, listeners, anybody who I'm having this conversation with is I have 6 brothers, 4 sisters, and I am not buying gifts for each and every one of them, and they're okay with that, and because we're all adults and that sort of thing. So who gets on the list and who doesn't? And it's usually has a lot to do with who's involved. Mm-hmm. So there was an aunt who used to live local, and she was heavily involved in the kids' lives, and all their extracurricular activities and that sort of thing. And so we would actually do Christmas with her as well. She'd come to the house, and so she's on the list. Where my brother, who is in Maryland, we like spending time together on a video chat, and that is gift enough, right? Mm-hmm. And so as you're putting together the list, not every name has to end up on that list, but you want to start to identify who am I going to be buying for? Also mentioned, what events do I want to participate in? So maybe your office has like a white elephant or a secret Santa. Maybe your family does the same type of thing. And so also just putting those events on that list to say, hey, we're going to participate in these things. We need to budget for that as well. And I always like to give some guardrails when it comes to more of the general population, I'll call it, right? Like, this does not apply to your specific children or your spouse. But outside of maybe your immediate family, having some guardrails. I know for Christina and I, we'll make the list, and the adults on the list, there's a cap, $50. And the children on the list, there's a cap, $25. So that we can, at least we have a starting point, and we can put some boundaries around just how much are we going to end up spending. And it really has also caused us to be much more thoughtful gift givers when we say, this is our limit. This is what we're willing to do.
Yeah, I agree. And it's kind of what I was alluding to when it came to our children, being able to say, what are those guardrails for our children? And quite frankly, this is the time of year when my husband and I are least on the same page. And so we have to sort of bring it in and say, okay, I understand you want to be able to do that. And this is what we can actually do. And then honestly, sometimes the hardest part is sticking to it. Yes. When you say the emotional spending, I think most of that for us happens, if we're not careful, in the last week before Christmas, because my husband was like, we have this plan and we stick to the plan. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if stuff from his childhood comes up or what, but he looks and he's like, oh, that's not enough. We got to do more. Like, babe, they're so well off. It's okay. It's going to be fine. So I think that's one of those things that, we are still working on. And even though I'm very much aware of all of this stuff that happens. But one thing I wanted to say when you talked about being more thoughtful and intentional in your giving, and that is that in the past, we have bought gifts for certain individuals and limited, I guess, the number of people that we're able to do that for. But we've also, made some really cute gifts for some of our family members, and we like to gift those to those who are in our presence, but also we include other family members. If it's an ornament that we make or something like that, then we will make that for everybody and make sure that, if somebody's visiting here, we package up a little bit of a package and send it back home with them. And so even if those people don't get those gifts until January, February, March, depending on when my parents go back, they still have that, and they know that we were thinking about them during the season. And so I just bring that up because I think it can be possible to gift something from the heart, something that was created by you that does not have to cost a lot of money, and they still know that you were thinking about them.
Yeah, I think that is an important reminder. We live in such a materialistic society, and sometimes we get caught up in that where but I have to spend, or I have to do this, and this is just a way that I can show how much I care or how much I value that person. And no, I encourage you not to get caught up in that, show them in other ways. Remember that there are 5 love languages, and gift giving is only one of the 5, right? And so you can express love and gratitude for your loved ones in many different ways.
Yeah, sure. And having said that, if you do decide to do something like this, at least include that into your budget spending as well. That's part of the reason I brought up, because it's easy to say, well, we don't have to buy something for X, Y, and Z. We're just going to do this little, craft, for example. But you want to make sure that you build in the cost of the craft as well, because there is a cost oftentimes to it, and you just don't want to forget that that's there.
Yeah. So step 1 is to make this list with people, events, places. Step 2 is to start to assign a dollar amount to each of these things so that you can total it. So you can total it all up and say, okay, well, with these people, these events, these experiences, it's going to be this much money. And I'll use $1,000 just as an example to help bring it home. But if you have $1,000 budget for Christmas, well, here's the great news. It's July. And there's some time to start to save toward that $1,000 goal for Christmas. And that becomes the third step in this equation, is to start saving. And we do everything by pay period here. So you can take how many pay periods you have between now and I would say Thanksgiving, right? So that you can take advantage of those Black Friday deals. But July, August, September, October, November, that's 5 months. If you're paid bi-weekly or twice a month, it's about 10 pay periods. If you're paid monthly, it's 5. But in any case, you can take your total, divide it by the number of pay periods you have between now and Thanksgiving, and now you can start to save. And think about it. If there's 10 pay periods between now and then, that's $100 a pay period, which I would imagine for many people is pretty doable, except, we have to also take into account the economy is wackadoo right now. So maybe that's a little bit harder than normal. But this is the process by which you can do something different this year so that you don't experience the same thing that you've been experiencing year after year after year.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. And one caveat I want to throw on there, Nino, is that a lot of times people think, I have to get this perfectly well. You don't need to get this perfectly well. Even if you do this 90% better than you did before, even if you do it 10% better than you did before, you will be better off than you were in years past. And so we do encourage you not to feel like it has to be all perfect before you decide to do it. And, oh, well, I screwed that up. I guess I got to wait till 2027, to start this whole process. No, you don't. Just start today and recognize that you might forget a couple people that you were going to have in there. So maybe you need, 1,100 instead of 1,000. It's okay. You're going to be way better off by the time November comes than you would have been had you not started this today.
Yeah, I like that. It's funny you went from 90 down to 10 because I was going to maybe throw in like 50%. But to your point, any progress made toward doing it differently is going to set you up better for when the time comes, in January, where so many times we are looking back and now we're waiting on the tax refund to help us clean up the mess. Think about how much farther along you'll be if you are 10%, 50%, 90% better at it this year than in years past. The other thing I wanted to just circle back to for a moment is this idea of like emotional spending, right? By being able to take some time 5 months in advance to think through that list and the dollar amount that you're willing to spend on somebody, the emotion that's tied to Christmas is really low right now. And it just allows you to spend more time in the rational side of the brain, in the logical side that just says, hey, what makes sense here? I'm going to share a story from a very long time ago. I mean, we're talking 25, maybe 30 years ago now. I was dating a girl, and we were dating around the holidays. And so Christmas came, and I had no plan whatsoever. So it was oh, well, her mother and her just had moved and they needed new beds. And I happened to be selling mattresses at a mattress place. And so I got a bit of an employee discount and whatnot. And I used that to justify spending $700 that I did not have. I didn't have $700. All of a sudden, I got real familiar with credit in that season of my life, and that it was just a bad way. And it's an extreme example, but it's an example of when you don't have a plan and when you're flying by the seat of your pants, you're going to make decisions you wouldn't otherwise make. Now, notice I just avoided saying you'll make bad decisions, because it's not about whether it's a good decision or a bad decision. It's about whether or not it's a decision you would otherwise make.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And to that point, it's exactly why I was talking about my daughter's story about, seeing things in the stores earlier, because I really think that is why sometimes we make such emotional decisions. We're in the moment. So you mentioned that the emotions tied to Christmas are really low in July. And I think part of that's because we don't see anything in the stores yet. And yet they're getting there earlier and earlier and earlier. And so we're probably going to have to strap in and be ready for that natural emotional tie coming as early as, I don't know, what would you say? Like August? Probably. Maybe September. But it is definitely coming earlier and earlier. So this is a solid time to get a hold of what your plan is, because pretty soon those lights are going to be going up and other things are going to be happening. And you're going to go, oh yeah, now we're emotional again, because it has a lot less to do, I believe, and I don't have any science to back this up, but I think it has a lot less to do with how close we are to the holiday and a lot more to do with what is being kind of thrust upon us.
I think there is a lot of wisdom there. The encouragement on the emotional side that I want to give everybody, and I would like to end in a way that really challenges people to imagine. I want you to imagine you've saved up, you've made your list, you have this plan, and you execute it even 90% well, even 75% well. I want you to imagine that you go into the month of December and your Christmas shopping is complete. Done. Everybody is bought for. Everything is wrapped weeks before the actual day. And by doing so, you are freed up to enjoy the company of loved ones and the events and the meals and all the things that go around the Christmas season in just a new and fresh way.
Sounds lovely.
All right. With that being said, if you're wondering, okay, how can I do this? I want to let you know you can start your free trial and become a New Money Habits Insider today and download the Payday Power Planner Plus. It includes our Christmas planner. The Christmas planner lays all of this out step by step. It says, hey, list the people, the events, and the things you want to participate in. Give that a dollar amount. It asks you how many paydays do you have between now and Thanksgiving, and it does the calculation for you on how much you need to save each paycheck to make this plan happen. So again, you can do that for free by becoming a New Money Habits Insider today and download the Payday Power Planner Plus.
Sounds exciting.
That becomes the challenge for our listeners this week. Our challenge for our listeners this week is to take the first step at doing Christmas differently in 2026.
Challenge accepted.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Christ Centered Stewardship Podcast. Follow us on your favorite social media platform for more encouragement and support. And until next time, may the Lord keep you in perfect peace as you set your sight on Jesus.